know, maybe like this with the new interface. Hello, Internet. It's been a little minute since my last update because of some uh, somewhat random reasons, part chaos in the immediate environment, and yeah, that's a lot of it. So, right now, in the Israel-Hamas war happening between Israel and the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, you know, after the initial support for Israel from all kinds of Western powers, immediately from day one, those of us who understand how this goes, we're saying, watch how quickly the support drops, and you're going to be seeing within a week or two the demands for Israel to restrain itself and for a ceasefire, for humanitarian aid corridors, etc. And obviously, those of us who were saying that were once again correct, because that is how it always goes in this particular conflict for a variety of reasons. And whether you support Israel or the Palestinians, it's always the same drumbeat, it's always the same reasons, and we see that that is something that just prolongs the conflict. But what is it that ends conflict? Well, war ends when one side surrenders to the other. And that is an option, right? One side can surrender to the other. In this case, it would likely be, the Hamas surrendering to Israel if they were not on a ideological bent, as marked in their covenant in the very first sentence, that their entire purpose for reason for existing is to destroy Israel and kill all the Jews, right? And not just all the Jews, but everybody else in Israel, as well as all the Jews around the world. Like that is specifically stated in, as the purpose of their covenant, right? The reason for their existence. So when you think about what that means, it means obviously on a practical level, it's not really possible for Israel to achieve any kind of long-lasting peace with people who are bent on destroying them. However, the same could be said for the Nazis in Germany in World War II or Imperial Japan in World War II, right? Both of those groups had also been on ideological genocidal trips, and they also both surrendered, and that ended the war. And both of those countries, forged peace with the Allies after they surrendered, leading them both to massive economic growth, and both of them became economic powers in the post-war years for decades. And Germany is still today, the leading economic power in Europe, and Japan is still today the world's third leading economy. It was the second for a while, but obviously China took over some years ago. But nevertheless, Japan is the world's third leading economy. It's not by accident. That's by design in what happened after World War II. They focused on economic growth. They focused on technological advancement. They focused on, establishing a sane law and order and form of justice and ideology that was, pacifist, entirely against war because of the cost that they had to pay when America, dropped nuclear bombs or atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And of course, we don't want anything like that to happen in this case, although Israel has tactical nuclear weapons and everything else. Heaven forbid that's where it should come to. We really hope that it doesn't. Anybody who supports, the Israeli side should hope that doesn't come to pass, and also anybody who supports the Palestinian side should hope that doesn't come to pass, because that would be an awful development, right? Like unimaginably bad. But at the same time, it demonstrates, right, that even the Nazi regime, the Third Reich, was ultimately willing to surrender because they'd been defeated. And there were no anti-American or anti-ally protests in the West demanding, to free Europe of all the Jews and etc. From the Atlantic to the Mediterranean or whatever, right? They were all saying, defeat the Nazis and then make peace, right? And in Nazi Germany, they were all on a very strong bent to win their war at any cost. Nevertheless, when the Allies bombed the living daylights out of Berlin and other major cities in Germany, Dresden and whatnot, after a while, when the Allies had advanced to Berlin and knocked out Adolf Hitler and bombed Berlin to smithereens, the Nazis understand, their jig was up, and they surrendered, and that's what led to the peace that was able to be forged once they surrendered. And the same thing could happen here. Right? The difference is that if the Israelis surrendered, the Hamas ostensibly would not forge a peace because their covenant forces them to want to destroy the entire state of Israel and kill every Jew, etc. But the Israeli side, if there's a peace, if there's anybody surrendering, would not do that to the other side. They have no interest in doing that. So that's how peace could be achieved.